Your ability to say no to things you're not supposed to do so that you have the time, energy to focus on what you should be saying yes to. That to me is being highly productive. Good morning. We were just talking off air, really just talking about what we're going to talk about on today's episode, which is just kind of a breakdown or a recap of our very first live mastermind event. And I thought it went really, really good. So what is your guys's, Ben, you were part of it. Colton, you helped to run it. How did you guys think it went? And then what I'd like to do on today's episode was break down some key insights from the event that were brought up that I think the audience could really benefit from.
Well, I'll start. It's just a testament to two things. One, no doubt Asher's work ethic, but as well as just what you, Brandon, and Colton have built at Reverse Selling, of just putting together a playbook and just giving absolutely anybody an opportunity to succeed at an extremely high level if they desire to, right? And people have different goals and different levels that they want to achieve. And Asher has set really high marks and put in the work and followed the playbook to a T and is now reaping the benefits of it.
Well, it's so interesting. I would agree. I think that two things, pretty much two big things that hit me from it was, somebody in the live audience yesterday commented on that, and we'll just, it doesn't matter. We'll leave names out of it because it doesn't matter. But he was talking about, he's been in the business for a long time, right? I think it was 8 years or so. And he was essentially saying something that you reminded me of. He was just like, our guest, right? Because people watching this don't know who Asher is, right? So the guest who was our mastermind, essentially breaking down his business. This is a 21-year-old real estate agent who's been in the business for 2 years. That's it. He's brand new. And he's on pace to make $1 million in income this year, was breaking down his business through direct outbound prospecting. One of the agents, Ben, to your point, in the audience, talked about the fact that he was in the business for 8 years and just now having the willingness to surrender to the playbook. And this isn't just the reverse selling playbook. This has to do with letting go of our ego. Because I was the same way. When he said that, I really resonated with that message, because I'm like, I was the same way. When I got into real estate and I came out of the mortgage business, I thought I was a hot shot, and because I've been on the phone for so long, I thought my sales skills were impeccable. No one was going to tell me anything. And this isn't exactly what he was saying, but what you're reminding me of, and I think one of the biggest takeaways is the people in the audience, when they were asking our guest questions, they were expecting to get answers that weren't in the playbook, that were something outside of what we've been teaching people for years and years and years. And they didn't find that. What they found was his execution of what he has learned is at the highest level. In other words, everybody has the script book. I don't know, I think 70,000, 80,000 people have downloaded our script book off of YouTube.
Colton and I get the question all the time. So if I get into coaching, is there a different one?
Right. Exactly right. So this is what I'm trying to say. I'll try to get to my first point is, that's what the people in the audience were expecting to hear. Like, what are you saying? And then when he delivered it, what the big insight was, it was exactly what was on the script book, but how he delivered it sounded so different that somebody believed it was a different script.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing? That was probably one of my biggest takeaways, is his follow-up system that we broke down was exactly to a T, our playbook. His appointment setting framework, exactly the way in which we teach it. But it's different when you just read the script off of a piece of paper and you've mastered the skill of selling. it sounds like a different script.
Absolutely. You
Yeah.
use the best example of like give me a script and then give Leonardo DiCaprio the script, exact same
Right.
thing. How are you going to feel, right? And Asher has taken it to a level of, almost like embodying an actor of like the tonality, the inflection, every little word. It's not a word anymore. It's like he's just really made it have emotion.
Well, and I would also make the argument is the delivery of information in communication, it's really a reflection of one's own self-identity.
Mm,
That's really what people are hearing, and that's why it's so difficult for people to be a world-class salesperson is because, all right, real quick, and then we'll get right back to the content. If you're a real estate agent, you're looking to build a listing based business, a business where you can generate a multiple six-figure income, a business that doesn't require you to waste thousands of dollars on the new marketing gimmicks, then I'm going to invite you to click the link right underneath this video to learn about our Listing Agent Academy coaching program. This is a 6-month intense coaching system that more than 3,000 agents from every market all over the country have now gone through. And here's the reality. Here's the truth. I will shoot you straight. This program is not for everyone. This is for agents who value being around winners. They value being in a community of other real estate agents that actually show up, that actually put forth the work. And this is for agents that embrace high levels of accountability and visibility. To get the details, all you have to do is click the link beneath this video. You can schedule a coaching consultation and then you can decide for yourself. So, with that being said, let's jump back into the content. What's fighting them is their self image, a lack of
Yeah.
self confidence, a lack of self worth. And so that's what came out yesterday in the mastermind. That's what people heard through
Yes.
Asher's words, through his delivery, was this self belief, this self conviction that I think really inspired people to say, wow, look at this young kid, this 21-year-old. That's what's being portrayed. The same way uh when I auditioned for Titanic. That's why they gave Leonardo the job and I didn't get the job. I'm like, what do you mean? I said the same words Leo did. What's the problem? Well, yeah, that's back to your point. I mean, the way in which Leo can deliver that performance, same words, same words. He gets paid 25 mil to get on the movie because it's so much more believable. That's what we're talking about. Is it isn't just what do I say, what do I say, what do I say? Because I can give you the words. And to your point, Ben, Colton and I could call the same prospect, same words, same script, and communicate something completely different that would result in two completely different outcomes. Colton, I think you were going to add
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, and that outcome wouldn't be so good for you. But anyways, just I thought you were gonna set me up for one of those. I had to give it to you.
I love it.
Speaking of the self-image though, like one thing I noticed with Asher, and this is true for anybody successful, I've gone through this myself when hiring coaches or buying courses or whatever. I think a lot of people on the call, nobody said this, but I could tell from their questions because I was the same way. And to this day am on certain things. We all are when we look to grow. They're waiting for someone's permission to have the confidence in a way, right?
Mm,
Like Asher gave himself the permission through you. Maybe you held up a mirror for him to see. He doesn't need the permission to be like, why is he so confident? Why can he at 21 years old do this? And it's because through the process of commitment, he also talked about the 10-year letter he wrote to himself that we got our clients through. He committed to the process for the next 10 years. I don't care what happens. This is going to be my day every single day, no matter what, for the next 10 years. And just having that commitment to the process and then actually following his process and practicing. And he kind of probably realized at some point, like, there is no like, once I do this, then I have that. It's just like, I got to go out and take it myself.
great point. I mean, you talk about we throw the word coachable around a lot. I mean, that was another key thing that I think people saw
Mm,
in our guest is
Yeah.
coachable in action. Coachable in action means that you take a set, you take training, and training is the dissemination of information. Coaching is the implementation of that information. So you saw somebody take the information that everybody has access to, right? There's no lack of information. There's a lack of execution on that information. And you take somebody who has a commitment to excellence. To me, that means that practically you are practicing one line of the script 50 times on a recorder and then sending that into your coach to get reviewed. And your coach going back to you say, listen, that the way that you've inflected on that word is out of context. The inflection needs to be more like this. And then he go back and record it another 50 times, send that into the coach, and the coach then goes back. Somebody said Asher is a a spitting image of Brandon. Well, fine, if that's what you see. The question is why? Because he's such a student of the game. Coachable is, I mean, it's hard to even put words to, because I get even a little bit emotional, because somebody who is willing to commit to that level of mastery is so rare. It's so rare. That's why he can step on stage like he did yesterday and deliver and role play and be put on the spot time and time again and not be phased at all.
No, it's easier because it's not even it's a role play. It's practice, right? He's not even in the game. That's what he's like, over practiced. So when he gets in the game at any time, whether it's a role play or whatever, he just steps up. I was thinking too about like just his craft of what you're talking about, just how much he's refined it. And people were still looking for an excuse of why he's gotten to this level and something they don't have. And many times you said Asher and I have been working together for 2 years, and people were so quick to jump to the conclusion that you've coached him one-on-one. But it hasn't even been until recently that you guys have had some deeper conversations in the background. But he went through Listing Agent Academy just like everybody else. He was on the coaching calls just like everybody else. And he just decided to treat those and dive super deep on those and do the extra work outside of practice, outside of the games, that has really resulted at him getting to the level where he has gotten some more intense coaching. But it was only after, I think is my point, he arrived.
Yeah, the same way you did, quite frankly, Ben.
That's right.
That's how we met. The reason why you and I work together now on the same team was because of your execution of the same way Asher is. It's like you just took the coaching and you implemented it into your real business of selling houses and created massive success that drew me closer to you.
That's right.
The same way it has with Asher. So let's break this. There's no tricks. Yeah, you were just executing. So I want to break down a couple pieces of the actual event for the audience sake that wasn't there. Like where I think the most questions came up. So I have the outline of the event right here, and we'll kind of go through it. So the first one was the daily schedule. I think there was a lot of questions around, how can you handle 45, clients at once? You got 16, 18 active pendings or actives, 15 pendings, closing 10 to 15 properties a month, and then you're taking 10 to 15 listings a month. And a lot of questions came in like, well, how can you even do that? One insight I'd like to share with the audience is that another word that gets thrown around that literally is so often spoken into our world that it gets dismissed, the whole time blocking, time chunking. Everybody has heard that a million times, and therefore they put no actual effort into doing it. It's not a matter of have you heard this before? It's a matter of, are you doing it? And if you're doing it, have you mastered it? And if you say you've mastered it, do your results prove it? That is a reflection of what happened to Asher. When we say time blocking, what that means to him unlike it means to most agents. For him, that means literally, like literally, from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m., he's making one call after the next, zero distraction. It's laser beam focused. It's monk-like discipline for 2 hours straight. Impeccable focus. Nothing else is going to get in his way, period. That's what it means to him. It's going to, I mean, pigs have to fall from the heavens in order for him to break that 2 hours. That's the first quarter. That's Q1. Q2, lead follow-up, same thing, impeccable 90 minutes following up with people in the database. Then he purposefully takes a break for lunch to get into Q3. He purposefully in Q3 follows up with every single client that he's dealing with. He touches every file. He updates every agent. He updates all the lenders, all the title companies, because he's so strategic, he's so focused. And I think most people would find that same thing. Like if you were to focus, really focus for an hour without doing anything else, you would be like, I can't believe how much I just got done. I can't believe to the level of the level of productivity that I can have when I can absolutely focus. And that's what we talked a lot about yesterday in the event was your ability to say no to things you're not supposed to do so that you have the time, energy to focus on what you should be saying yes to. That to me is being highly productive. And that's, I think, what pulls people oftentimes is all these distractions. We invite the distraction to take us off of what we know we should be doing to justify why we can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Any insights for you guys on the schedule?
Yeah, one for me. A lot of people were so taken aback by that. They're like, "Well, what do you have your listing coordinator do, or what is your?" And he's like, "No, I don't have one." And one thing that I think a lot of us, me included, tend to do is over optimize from the start, right? Whereas like Asher just through focus and time blocking, just blunt force powers through it, and he's now just to the point where he's starting to optimize more out of necessity, not because, oh, this is what I hear successful agents do or this or that. So then you waste time trying to over optimize something that's not even like in momentum. And so he just blunt force focuses, gets it done, and then through necessity optimizes certain processes to make that time more efficient.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Ben.
I think the
Go ahead.
big aha for me is when I kind of got through the hurdle of time blocking was setting expectations up front. And he does such a good job. And that was the same thing that helped me transition was letting people know when they can hear from you, when they will hear from you, so that hey, I'm just going to be honest with you so that I can serve you at the highest level. You're just not going to be able to get a hold of me before noon. But I promise you every day between 1 and 3, we will touch base. And, husband and wife are sitting around watching TV and they're like worried or stressing about something. And they're like, hey, let's call Asher. It's 9 o'clock. He's a mule. He does whatever we need him to do. Let's give him a call. He'll answer our question. And so often we fall for that bait versus he sets the expectation up front. They have the conversation and then they say, you know what? He called us the last 3 days in a row at 1:30. Hey, let's just talk to him about this tomorrow when he calls us. And they're just at ease.
Yeah, it's a great point. It's a great point. And I guess before we move on, the last thing I'll talk about time blocking is I don't doubt that if I were to look at people's calendars, they've got like little blocks of things that say, do this, do that. I'm not doubting that for a second. I'm not doubting the fact that the real estate agent listening to this podcast says, yeah, I know about time blocking. I've read all the books. Yep. I get it. What I would challenge the audience is, right, but if I was sitting there, how many other things are you doing at the same time when your schedule says you should only be doing this one thing? And that's when we see the difference. The difference is like in the inches that are all around us. You see, the peak performer, when he or she is performing at his or her highest level, The amount of focus during this period of time is unlike the low producer who is scatterbrained during the same period of time. You may have the 1 hour call block, but during that 1 hour call block, if I were to stopwatch you, you probably only had 16 minutes of actual productivity because it was this break and this return of text and this Instagram message and that Facebook comment and, changing the laundry, grabbing a cup of coffee, going pee 2 or 3 times, taking a dump, whatever you got to do. When you look at an hour's worth of time, that's the difference between elite and everybody else. Then compound that over 8 hours, 9 hours, 10 hours a day, 250, 280 times a year. And then it becomes very clear the gap that gets built between elite and everyone else. That was another huge takeaway for me. And it's just incredible. Like, that's why we say win the morning, win the day. Like, I love my mornings because I feel at noon that I've literally gotten more done than 99% of my competitors will do all week.
And one hack he talked about was that he had to build that muscle. So,
Yeah.
At first it was, hey, let me set a timer for 30 minutes, like you teach us. And I'm going to be laser focused for 30 minutes. Then I'm going to give myself an opportunity to take 15 minutes, 10 minutes to answer the text, to do this, do that, and then get right back to it. And he talked about how at first it was 45 minutes and now he can go for 4 hours straight, which is insane, right? But it's just like training for a marathon or whatever. You got to build up to it. So don't go in, expecting to do 4 hours straight. That's not what we're saying. Just build that muscle.
Yeah, 100%. So the next thing I want to get into was this whole concept of how to approach prospecting from the standpoint of like going deep versus wide. I think a lot of people were shocked to see, like, when he gets a new lead, he attempts it not once, not twice, not 3 times, 10 times on day one. And, this is what I've been trying to scream from the mountaintops for years and years and years, this whole concept of like sniper mode, right? Like, it would make any marketer would tell you the same thing. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'll spitball this, but like the same marketing message over and over and over again to the same group or the same audience will always outperform the audience that hears one message one time and that goes to a bunch of different people. I don't know if I said that well, but you get it. Like, it'd make a lot more sense to market to the same 100 people over and 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 over again, because it takes like the 7th or 8th time for you to actually get a result or get them to respond, versus marketing to millions of people one time, because that one time doesn't penetrate, doesn't do anything. And so we do the same thing with outbound prospecting, right? It's like, if you have this group of humans with properties in which you can help these people in an area that you serve, it'd make a lot more sense for you to hone in, take the law of essentialism and say, I'm going to focus on these 50 leads versus, loading up some prospecting system with 5,000 leads and then like shotgun approach or machine gun, just spray. It's like, I think people were really shocked at that.
Can I share like a visual that popped into my head? Like, so as I have a 3-year-old and we're playing memory a lot lately. And
Love it.
it's a kid version. So there's a board of whatever, 5x5 things. And I just think of it like this: as we just go through the list, it's like you get one try to get a match. You get one try, where Asher is taking 10 tries to get a match with every prospect. And that
Great
was just a
point.
big aha for me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. So I want to get into the skills piece of the event, because I think there was a lot of good insights there. Anything you want to add, Colton, or you want to just jump into the skills part?
The only other thing is just the different types of touches he makes. Not only the multiple phone calls, but the different, like, he sends 3 different texts: a video text, an email, and then if it's a good lead, he's going to knock it on that door. So
Great
it's
point.
just not only how many times, but the variety as well.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really really good point. I think the insight there is like there's a difference between how do I say this? Like if you really wanted to do something or if you really had to do something, the action in which you would take, the things you would do would be different than
Yep.
if you're just kind of like checking the boxes and going through the motions, you know? Like if you really wanted to lose weight, you would do a certain you would behave a certain way and you would lose the weight. But if
Yeah.
weight loss is just, if I do, I do. If I don't, I don't. That's what you're talking about. If you really wanted it, if you saw a property, a phenomenal property, and you know you can sell that thing, then you're not going to just attempt it one time. You're going to send them an Instagram message. You're going to knock on the door. You're going to send them a piece of direct. Oh, did I lose you guys?
Nope.
No, we're still here.
Okay.
Here.
You're going to do a lot of different actions or behaviors to get in touch with that homeowner to
Yeah.
determine if you can help them. But most
Yeah.
agents are just checking the box, they're just hitting a button, and taking the scraps.
It's
I
like
have. Go ahead, Colin.
Sorry, I was gonna say, Brent. Alex Ramosi talks about like if this was your one customer you only had and you had to build a whole business around it, like that's the way Asher treats these leads. Like, dude, if this was the last lead on planet Earth that it took for me to run and scale my business, like, what would I do to get a hold of them? And the other thing with that you mentioned, he said this subtly a couple times. I don't know if anybody picked up on it, but he said it around the context of like when he would go and knock on the door. He's like, if it's a type of house that I know I can sell, and he said it so subtly, but like deep down, he's like, I can sell that. Like, I'm gonna sell this property. I know I can sell, and he fully believes that. It's just so subtle, and it's just that attitude of like, oh no, that's not a problem. Like, I'm gonna sell this property, and he just shows that through his actions, and that comes across to the client as well.
Great point.
I think about a personal client of mine. He's my best client. And I think often I was putting myself in a position of making the calls about me. And once I
Mm.
changed my perspective of I have no idea where this prospect is in life in the moment I call them. So like I've got this client that first interaction I had with him over the phone, he cursed me out like we've all been and then hung up. And I followed up with him the next day and had the most pleasant conversation with him. And it wasn't until months later that we had a conversation, and he like had no idea he had that interaction. But I think we make it about us versus I don't know if that guy is, at the doctor with his kid. I don't know if he just got in a car crash. I don't know if he's, got a handful of groceries, right? So when people like dismiss us, we often make it about us versus them and just giving them the benefit of the doubt. So Asher does such a good job of giving himself the opportunity to catch people at the right time versus
Yeah.
just hoping he does the first time.
Yeah, that's yeah. You bring up something really interesting. I think you're right. I think a lot of people look at the act of prospecting and hoping to get their emotional needs met, where that's no place for you to get your emotional needs met. Like it isn't about you. This
Right.
act, this act of service is what I would call it, is about the prospect. It's about how you can serve others. It's about how you can show up for others. It's about how you can help people. And it's not about you and the way that you feel. And so that's a really, really good point. Let's jump into the conversation, because I think this was a huge eye opener for people, kind of how we opened the show, just in the way in which he delivers what it is that we believe people should be communicating, I think was the big eye opener. We talked about that. But just the approach, I just want to stand that for a second. There's a big difference between forcing your way into a conversation and positioning a conversation that somebody wants to have willingly. Because prospects make their own decisions for their reasons. And I think what a lot of newer salespeople, even I would say people that have been in the game for a long time, even that say that they're sales trainers, will still train you on, hey, say this. This will get them to
Yeah.
do this. say it like this and you'll get them to respond this way. In other words, what's being taught and what people are buying into is, what do I have to say? What information should I need to share that would convince this person to do something? In other words, these are my reasons as a salesperson why they should meet with me. And what Asher has really learned, the art of reverse selling, is how to ask questions in a way to help the person discover their reasons for wanting to meet with me.
Yep.
And it's a huge difference in approach that I think most people just on the planet aren't used to, that would say it's refreshing. Because we're supporting the person's autonomy, which they're not used to. We're relinquishing all ego. We're giving them all the control, which they're not used to. And when you do that strategically, when people feel that they have the power, that they're in control of their own destiny, there's no psychological reactance to deal with. There aren't any objections. So forget, how do I handle objections? Well, what if there was a world where you never got any? Wouldn't that be a better playground, a better sandbox to play in?
It's so interesting because I mean, from what we really didn't even talk about objections yesterday.
No.
At all.
No, because here's the thing. Again, guys, this is kind of like what I'm starting to even realize myself, is that objections shouldn't be a thing in the selling process, because it goes against like what sales is like, if you tell me, if you give me some type of pushback or whatever, someone would say what a rejection or objection. Well, you're not going to say some magic script and change this person's worldview. Anything I believe you try to do is going to help just going to make that person dig in more. So if you're thinking about objections, you're thinking about it in reaction to something. It's too late. So wouldn't it be better to approach the conversation proactively in a way that resulted in you never getting an objection? That to me makes a lot more sense. And how do we do that? We do it in a way, call it permission-based selling, but really what we're doing is we're supporting the person's autonomy to make their own decision. So like when I get into a conversation and you say things, or I might say something like, would it be a bad idea for us to even have a conversation about meeting? Now, when I approach the conversation like that, when I bring up the idea or the argument, and I'm open to the idea that it could be a bad idea, the prospect doesn't have any reason to defend themselves. They actually feel more open to say, well, you know what I'm saying? Like there's no reason for them to dig into the sand.
Or you get the real reason why you shouldn't have the conversation.
That's right. And isn't that what we want, is the truth?
Oh, okay, cool.
That's right. Would it be a bad idea for us to maybe get together and just look at some options, and from there you could decide what might make sense for you in the future and what might not? And quite frankly, it may not. Yeah. And the prospect can either say, yeah, that would be a bad idea, and here's why, which is what we want. So we're not following up with leads that are really prospects, or you get to the truth because you haven't put the person on the defensive.
And that's like, I think people think, hey, we say to say this, and because you are going to go say this now, everybody's going to want to work with you. I think the big thing that I take away from yesterday was Asher just gets into more conversations, versus I think a lot of us don't even give ourselves an opportunity to have the conversation with the prospect.
Spot on. That's what it's about. When you approach somebody and you make them feel that they are in full control, that you make them feel that you aren't biased to anything that is in your interest, when you make them feel that their freedom to make their own choices is apparent, there isn't any reason for them to get nasty. There isn't any reason for them to feel threatened. There isn't any reason for them to reject you or give you an objection. And it's so much easier for the person to open up and have a conversation, to your point, Ben, regardless of the outcome. If we find out that meeting doesn't make sense, it's perfectly fine. Instead of all these mules trying to twist people's arms into meeting no matter what, they're forgetting the first rule of selling. No pain, no sale.
Yep.
They're trying to
Yeah,
manufacture motivation.
we go into convincing mode, and like with
Yeah.
for sale banners as an example, like here's all the reasons you need to meet with an agent, right? And then so what is the for sale banner gonna do? They're gonna push back against that. So that's their
Here's all the reasons
their,
why I shouldn't.
yes, that's their inclination, is their nature, is to push back against what you say. So when you reverse it and you try to get them to push back against the opposite, well, why even sell this property? Like it, might not even make sense. Well, because of this and that was one of the key takeaways, Brandon, that when people really there was like 10 messages in the chat, like, oh my gosh, I see what he did there. He got them to convince him why they have to move.
That's right. Because here's the thing. This is good. Now we're getting into like some good sales stuff. You see the thing that people think they're selling is the problem. Most salespeople think they're selling the widget, or they're selling a listing. It's like nobody's interested in a listing. They even think they're selling a house, but we're not. We're somebody is. I'll use my hands in this little screen that I have. Prospect is here. Prospect wants to get here. And this thing in the middle is called the gap. Our job is to find out what is that gap. That's what we're selling. In the case of real estate sales, what we do is they have had something occur in their life that is causing them to change their living habitat. That's what we're selling. And so many agents are like, well, I do this with my listings and I do that with my listings. It doesn't work. Why? Because that's not what the person is looking for. The person's looking for a bigger house because they just had a baby.
Yeah.
The person's looking to move because their kids all moved away from them. They feel lonely. They have this void in their life because they're getting into their 80s and they want to be surrounded with family. That's what you're selling. People buy emotionally. They justify logically. And realtors continue to try to sell logic. Well, I do open houses and I do aerial photography and I do 3D drones and I do this. You're appealing to the logic brain. People don't make decisions like that. We're selling the wrong thing. And that's why we talk about getting to the heart of motivation, the heart, the feeling. Why is this person doing this? I promise you, nobody is selling their house because they're buying a listing. Like they want to see their house on Zillow. That's not why they move. That's just the part of the process they got to go through. But I think agents are just missing the boat on that.
And the secret sauce that we talked about yesterday is a simple question from, going from why are you selling, which puts them onto the defense, to, Miss Betty, which was our example yesterday. Is it an option for you just to stay put?
That's right. If you're looking to, because we're selling to the motivation, well, I got to get something smaller. I got to do this. I got to do that. Is it an option maybe just to get your house from the second, or your bedroom on the first level? Is there a room that you can remake in your current house to make it a first floor master so you don't have to go up and down the stairs? Now, to Colton's point, what have we done? We've made the argument for the status quo. Salespeople suck at that. They only make arguments for give me money. And you put the person on the defensive. So when you make the status quo that seemingly goes against your interest, and you make the argument for just don't do anything, stay put, keep doing what you're doing, now the same thing happens, but the person then makes all of their arguments for why they should move. And isn't that what we're after?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I don't know if it's because they're either just not aware of this, or if they're actually worried, like, what if what if the seller can figure out how to stay here? And it's their selfish nature of like, well, that's not going to get me the deal if I tell her to stay here. You know, so
but the thing is,
work, Brandon, she stayed put.
Yeah, well, she was going to do that no matter what.
Correct.
What what you don't want to hear is you've got happy ears. You don't want to hear that now. You want to play the chase game, and then when you find out in 9 weeks from now that she's just going to stay put, now you want to blame her. when all
Yeah,
you heard was what you wanted to hear. And so, yeah, Colton, to your point, the amateur says, well, why would I want to say that? That doesn't help me any. Right. We're trying to get to the truth. If you knew a prospect was never going to move, ever, never, would you want to put them in your pipeline and send them direct mail and send them messages and follow up every week for 9.5 years? No, you wouldn't. So why not just find out now? Because we're so afraid of no. We're so afraid of the truth. We avoid it at all costs that we end up in people's voicemail jail. We end up, following up with people that are in the witness protection program. They never pick up our calls. They never call us back. They avoid us like the plague. And then we want to say, well, it's my follow-up system. What do I say in the follow-up? No, you're following up the wrong people because your unwillingness to hear no, your unwillingness to face the truth. And Colton, I think that's what my counter argument to that would be is if you speak in truth and you make it safe for someone to tell you no, and they do, why would that be a bad thing? Do you see that? Only the person with low self-esteem, the salesperson says, well, why would I communicate why would I use reverse negative selling? Because what if they do tell me no? What if they do tell me they want to stay in their house? Well, my question would be, do you want to find out now or do you want to find out later?
100%.
And it's because what people want to hear is, well, I don't want to sell my house. Yeah, but the market's really good now. And even with low interest rates, there's all kinds of ways to do this, to that, la, 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 la. Well, I'll think about it. Boom, 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 boom. That's what I want to hear. All right, I'll put in my pipeline. I'll follow up over and over and over again. Hopefully I can get a listing. Hope is not a strategy.
And in my experience was prospecting felt like a grind, right? Trying to convince everybody. Once I, took these reverse selling skills and applied them, it just like Asher said yesterday, I talked to 1,000 people, maybe one person doesn't get into a conversation. So my same experience was now I'm just sorting. I get into the conversation. People that actually need my help is who we're looking for. We're not looking to convince people to do something. And it's just so much more of a refreshing way to spend 4 hours prospecting versus trying to, ultimately deal with things downstream that you could have avoided by doing the correct thing up front.
Amazing. That's a point that we don't talk about often enough is like, not only does it remove any resistance or pressure from the prospect, it removes all the pressure and resistance from you to actually do this activity.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Appreciate you, boys. Great show. We'll see you guys probably, I think, next Monday is when we air our next episode. Cool. Yep. So everybody in the audience, have a great week. We'll see you guys soon. Appreciate your time and attention like always.